Alright, so today I got the Platinum Trophy on Resident Evil 3. Now in the past I've made a few videos on Resident Evil games and I absolutely love doing them. Something about horror games that aren't necessarily too hard to lose your mind on like Outlast 2, but hard enough that it's a fun challenge, really just makes for a good time. And that's basically what the entire Resident Evil trophy hunting experience is like, with Resident Evil 3 being no different. The game is a total of 33 trophies including the Platinum, and that's a bit less than usual because there is barely any combat related trophies, with almost every single one being in relation to an ending or playthrough type. And speaking of playthroughs, it takes at least 4 to get, with more most likely being needed, so strap in today because it's gonna be a... Anyways, this is also a part of a challenge where I've been trying to platinum over 100 games suggested by the community. And if I can't complete them all before the channel hits 850,000 subscribers, then I have to shave my head and look like a base character from a video game. So make sure to drop a like and subscribe. Stage 1 in getting the Resident Evil 3 Platinum is to, as usual, just enjoy the story while going for every single collectible in the game. And there's quite a few, but nothing insane in terms of the amount. But anyways, Resident Evil 3 is set inside of Raccoon City, following the hours after the initial outbreak of the zombie infection that brings chaos overnight and sends everything into one giant mess. And the intro cutscene sort of just explains this with news footage inside the game. Also, this lady looks like the girl from the Elf movie and I just can't stop seeing it. But then we gain control of our character today, that being Jill Valentine, one of 2 playable characters in this game. Now there really isn't too much to do in this first place except go over to the bathroom and turn off the water because someone apparently left it on, absolutely bankrupting the water bill right now. But once we turned it off, you see Jill's face and body turn into one of the infected people, and before she loses it, she just pops herself. However, that was just a bad dream if you couldn't already tell by the black and white. We are now actually playing as Jill in reality and then go do the same thing we did in the nightmare, except no death occurred, thankfully. Instead, we have to go pick up the phone because it was ringing, and once we did, someone started yelling at us to get out of our apartment. Not telling us why, but we would figure it out once Nemesis, which is this thing's name, just broke through our wall so rudely. There is then a very long chase section, and as long as you're moving forward, you quite literally cannot die no matter what happens. And at one point, we got punched through a floor, so Jill apparently has that main character plot armor confirmed. But the chase section then ends off with Nemesis trying a little too hard and getting barricaded behind the exit door, with the first story trophy of many popping right after. But a few steps after that, we ran into Brad, an absolute Chad of a name. He was also the dude who called us trying to warn of the danger coming our way. But Brad is also our guide for this very first intro part, and not for very long. That's because after he escorted us a little through the city, he would end up getting caught with the infected. Rest in peace, Brad. I'll kill you later in honor of your assistance, don't worry. I then found the first weapon of the game, a simple pistol. And right after grabbing it, a bunch of enemies started running up behind me as if they were just waiting for me to grab the gun. I killed one, but then 3 more turned the corner and made the executive decision to f*** off. A classic. We then had to crawl under a sign and reach another building of safety. Inside was also a coward who ran away from us and hid inside of a truck. Now he might be running from the zombies, but we are also a pretty woman, so if he ran for that reason, it makes just as much sense. A few minutes later, I then made it into a parking garage and had to take this elevator to get up to the roof because high ground wins all battles, a tale's old time. And there's a few enemies once you open the elevator, but pro tip, you can just run past them, seeing as our gun sucks on every difficulty, even assisted. Once reaching the roof, you then see a helicopter coming down to get us because Jill here is a STARS agent if you don't know, and has that aura deserving of rescue unlike the average citizen. But the helicopter would end up crashing from the Nemesis enemy who showed up again like a bad pimple. We just can't ever get rid of him. And again, because our gun sucks, we instead got in a car and tried to run him over with it, which we did, and both of us then got vaulted off the back of the roof down to the ground floor. Nemesis, however, was barely shook and dramatically walked over to us. Bro has some weird kinks doing all of this extra stuff for no reason. But thanks to his drama, Carlos, an Umbrella agent, had time to shoot a rocket launcher at him and save us for the time being, which popped another story trophy. We also do play as Carlos later, by the way, and he's a homie for real. Once we regain control, the next objective is to now go into the subway with Carlos and meet up with some survivors down there and other Umbrella agents. However, there was the first Charlie dog collectible a bit back from where we came from, and I headed to get it. Once shooting the doll, it also gave me my first collectible trophy of the game. I then followed Carlos into the subway station and into their subway home base. Inside of it was the leader, or at least the guy in command, named Victor. He also knew us because, as I said, Jill here has that aura. But he also explained their situation, showed us a cart full of civilians, and told us that the subway has no power to move, despite all of the lights being on. I'm not sure I believe that one, buddy. But that's now our objective, and like half of this game's plot and story is us trying to get this thing powered up and get out of here. Resident Evil 3 has a very short story if you don't already know. But once reaching topside on the beginning of our journey here tonight, I got confronted with the first real enemy of the game. And it's safe to say I was a bit rusty from not playing any Resident Evil Evil games for a hot minute, I also forgot how hard it is to kill enemies regardless of playing on the easiest mode. But I didn't forget how to craft healable items and did so right after since I took a hit or two, which then popped me a trophy for crafting my first healing item of the game. Now since this is my first playthrough, I did take my time and explore thoroughly everything there was while also grabbing collectibles. And if you don't know how Resident Evil games work, they basically just have a few puzzles for progression inside of the levels, while also dumping enemies throughout them to make it more challenging. And the first real puzzle of this game was trying to get this fire hydrant working and put out the fire in this alley to reach the power station. But apparently shooting it doesn't work because I wasted an entire clip trying to. I thought that was a smart idea, but then again my IQ might not be that high after all. Instead, we have to find a fire hose all the way across the map in a completely different area to use it. Now, I had no idea where that was at first, so I was genuinely just wandering around looting and getting collectibles. I also got totally f***ed up by zombies here and there, but even with copious amounts of men sucking our neck, Jill made it out with her body still alive and well. I'm not sure how that's possible, but I guess she has that thick skin, quite literally. However, eventually I reached the first safe of the game and used the code from the video guide I was watching. Shout out to PS5 trophies. Once opening it, I also found the first weapon upgrade of the game and equipped it, which was my first upgrade trophy yet, and here it is. Right before reaching the building with a fire hose, however, I also finally utilized exploding barrels in the game. And in Resident Evil 3, explosions do so much damn damage and have such a spread, I think I fell in love with it a little bit. The fire hose was then just sitting on this ground in the hallway. I have no idea why someone left it here or where it came from, but okay. So now we get to head back and put out the fire. On the way back, there wasn't any major combat aside from more zombies showing up or coming back to life. Bit of both, I'm not gonna lie. So we then put out the fire, and that led us into a safe room which had bolt cutters inside of it. A very, very key item. I then used those to get through the red door in the same room which was locked up. Once inside, we saw an Umbrella agent dying on the floor from a bite, and he might have made it, but then this other dude walked in and just popped his head without warning. We also have no idea who this guy is yet, but he is very evil and then just walked away. So I just kept on with the path and would end up reaching the power control room. Inside of it was also the first hip upgrade of the game, which expands inventory and got me another collectible trophy. But as I said, we are in the power control station. However, the power is not on, and we have to go inside this spider maze thing to switch all the fuses on because they are all shut down. However, before doing that, I did backtrack a ton and went back to get every collectible we missed previously due to not having the lock pick, which we now do have. I also got a trophy from this because I would get all of the gems needed for this little gem machine using the lock pick right here. But then I did run back to the power gate and walk through. A cutscene then played and showed a spider shoving its something down our throat. First time for everything, I guess. And that actually infected us with spider parasites. And the only way to get rid of them and not slowly die is by using any healing item at all. So it's very simple. But this power section had us just run around and flip on all 4 red power fuses over to green, meaning they were not working. And it was kind of hard at first because I had no clue where they were and a ton of spiders were just randomly pooping out of walls or just sitting still, making it hard to see them before they abused us. Once I flipped the final one on, I then had to run back through a ton of spiders, and I shot 2 of them at once with my shotgun, which got me a combat trophy, and I'm so aroused right now. I then left the maze and turned on the power for good, which kind of melted away the spider nest that got built up. On the run back to the subway, however, the Nemesis boss section began finally, and he's kind of hard to kill with normal means, so I struggled a little bit. No dying though, I'm not that bad at Resident Evil games. But I was also trying to get him to drop a weapon case because you need to hit him enough for those to drop or you'll miss some weapon upgrades. And after I threw a grenade at him, it finally made his ass open and spurred out one more, which gave me another trophy. But this Nemesis fight is very simple, and you're really supposed to just knock him down then run away, not keep shooting him like I did because it doesn't really do anything. But he then chased us for quite some time since we had to run all the way back to the place we got the fire hose at, seeing as in that same building is also the subway control terminal. And I had to go there then reroute the subway cart we are on to the right station because most are closed. And this is a quote-unquote puzzle, but you just have to look at the path and then enter them in correctly for it to work. Once done, I then exited that room and I got confronted with this new enemy type, which is very annoying. Zombies' heads turn into these gross parasite things that are way harder to kill than before, so that's fun. But we had to run back to the subway finally for good because everything is now on. And the Nemesis, of course, was here to try and not let us get there. But with some swift and perfect rolling to dodge him and other enemies, I made it quite easily. Shout out Elden Ring for the preparation. Once inside the subway station, we also met up with Carlos again, and that evil dude also showed up. His name is Nikolai, by the way. Basic bitch name be like. But then the Nemesis got in again, and we split from everyone to draw it away because he's after us alone. And it led us into another chase section in which I barely made it out alive. I actually think I got a bit bailed out, but it's fine because we are now in the sewer section of the game. Now this part is quite boring, so I'm gonna skim through it. Essentially all that happened was we had to find this battery pack, then bring it to the exit door to get out of the sewers, and that's it. But once we climbed out of the sewers, the Nemesis also showed up once more to ruin us yet again, and another chase section occurred. Except this time he had a flamethrower, making it a bit hotter. This led us all the way subway up this tall ass building under construction to the roof, and then we had a full-fledged boss fight against him. But since I had so much stuff, it was very easy, and to eliminate him even faster, you're supposed to shoot his gas tank on his back, which I did. The fight then ended with the building completely blowing up and us basically falling all the way down right into another story trophy popping. The objective, however, once we got up is to still just make it back to the damn subway station. And on the way, the nemesis showed up once more. But this time, instead of a normal chase or even a flamethrower chase, we did a chase where he shot RPGs at us. I love the creativity. And again, it just ended with a massive explosion and us making it out. That also did like a giant circle, and we were back in the little spot from the beginning. But then the nemesis showed up for a fourth time and shot this burger shop's mascot head off the roof, and it almost crushed us to death. I then had to run away yet again from his rockets, and we met up with Carlos, who saved us and then tried his absolute best to take out the nemesis without dying himself. And that then led us down to the subway for good. Carlos, however, got ordered elsewhere, so him and Jill's love story has been put on a pause for a moment, and it got put on an even further pause when the subway cart we were on crashed and everyone died. Rest in peace, but here's a trophy. So we now get to play as Carlos finally, because Jill's story has come to an end for the time being. But the Carlos storyline had us chasing down a scientist who made a vaccine/cure and is currently on the run because obviously Umbrella doesn't want that out there, seeing as they are a very evil company. And before getting inside the police station we were headed to, Brad actually showed up. Remember this guy? Yeah, I barely did also. But he's dead and I fulfilled my promise to him from the start. It was also a trophy for killing him, which is kind of funny in a messed up way. But the police station again had a very bland story arc, and you can complete it extremely quick because the only real goal is to reach the control room, and then once you interact with the exit door, it ends the Carlos gameplay for the time being with the trophy. We then swap back to Jill, who survived the crash in the subway because main character aura, duh. But you basically just crawl out of the underground again and then end up in a quite pretty area with a nice bridge, which we then got chased on by the nemesis, or at least a variant of him. The dude's looking a bit mutated at this point, rest in peace to whoever he used to be. But there was a big battle next with this thing, and it was one of the harder ones. Then again, all of the boss fights in this game, besides the final one, are very hard with normal weapons, and I can't look at them the same after unlocking the infinite rocket launcher later on. But surviving this fight is very easy because the guy just kind of runs around us like a dog with zoomies, and eventually we did enough damage to trigger the battle's ending cutscenes. It seemed like we won, but as we were walking away, the thing came back to life and we ended up shooting this gate down on its arm, which was a crazy good move, but the thing's arm just grew back immediately and then stabbed us with one final blow, infecting Jill. And that evil dude Nikolai then showed up again. How long have you been waiting there, bro? I gotta know. But after that finished up, I got another story trophy. A cutscene then plays and shows Carlos finding Jill all infected, and he takes her to the hospital where the vaccine could be at. So now we're playing as Carlos, and this is the second to last real story part of the game's story, having to find a vaccine or cure for Jill as Carlos. And this is done by running around the hospital cluelessly until finally reaching a room that had the scientist who made the thing inside of it. He is also no longer with us, but a computer right in the same room had a video log that documented his final moments, and it explained that the zombie infection was man-made, and obviously the cure/vaccine was also made along with it. However, Umbrella wants the cure gone for financial reasons, and we ended up finding the only sample of it in a fridge next door, then brought it back to Jill, but then a ton of infected were trying to get into the hospital, so we had to go do a classic zombies style combat section, fending off the waves of them coming in. That is before we put down a C4 on a pillar and waited for it to detonate and block off the entrance for good with another story trophy popping. But then the government was gonna blow up Raccoon City, so Carlos had to run off and try to stop them, or at least get in contact and tell them that we found the cure to the infection so they wouldn't blow us up. And this led us into playing as Jill once more. Before doing her objective though, I did backtrack into the hospital, and I got 2 trophies for collectibles because we are nearing the end of those, thank God. But her objective was to just go deeper into the facility and both find Carlos, but also make another sample of the cure because the government wants it for proof, not just hearsay. And the first puzzle we had required us to find these 3 fuses around this cluttered as room to turn back on the power once more. And if you do it in under 5 minutes like I did, you will also get a trophy from that. Once going up this elevator and interacting with some documents on this main control panel, a cutscene then played, and we followed Tyrell, who is this other side character, into the facility deeper. That is until the nemesis showed up once more, and well, Tyrell is no longer with us. Farewell, friend. But I got this trophy pop anyways. So now we have to make the cure ourselves in this place we are in because this is where it originally came from. And they still had the 2 chemical vials used around, so all we have to do was go pick them up and then combine them. I also found the last Charlie doll in the game for that collectible trophy right here. But once I had the chemicals and combined them, you then had to solve a little balancing puzzle to get the measurements just right and the cure to be functional. It's not too hard though, and I then made the purple ass liquid, which looks totally safe for consumption. So much so that the nemesis enemy wanted to try some and almost ate us. Twice. He almost ate us twice. There was then another boss fight against him, and it was kind of hard, but it was really just like the same one we did earlier, except in a more arena-esque area. Carlos also did help a little bit, not much, but emotional support is always nice, I guess. Anyways, once we did win, he raised us up out of the pit and then poured a ton of acid in it to hopefully kill off the thing for good, which was another story trophy. So now it's time for the final boss fight, which was in literally the next room against another nemesis. I have no clue how many of these motherfuckers exist, but they won't die. Anyways, this fight is actually the easiest in the entire game in terms of boss fights, at least on this difficulty. You can only damage it with this laser gun so conveniently placed right next to us, but using it is done by just pushing in a few power cylinders on the wall and then picking it up with our big girl muscles and shoving it down his throat, completely incinerating his insides and the entire room. And here is that final story trophy. I also found my last collectible right after for that one as well. So then the game ends off with Jill leaving the place and reaching the roof where the escape helicopter was. However, Carlos wasn't in it and instead dying on the floor from Nikolai, who ended up showing up, and there was then a tussle which left me with a gun pointed at them both. And if you don't hit Nikolai, you will actually kill Carlos, which kills you also because that's not allowed. But you can hit Nikolai in literally any area for it to work. So once you shoot him, you then board the heli, talk some shit, and then fly away as the city gets nuked because we barely made it out and didn't have time to give the government the cure, obviously. And I actually didn't get any trophies from that ending because I was on assisted just getting collectibles, so that's lame. However, instead of just jumping into hardcore for the next run, I went and farmed a few challenges to get points so I could purchase the infinite ammo rocket launcher because that is the best gun in the game by far, and literally needs to be used to platinum this game, unless you're like the world's best Resident Evil 3 player to ever exist. So I just farmed kills on various saves I had, which were all amazing locations somehow. I actually don't know how I got such good ones. It's kind of odd how perfect it is. But I grinded points for probably like an hour or so until I got enough to buy the thing. And the second I did buy it, I then loaded up a hardcore playthrough, which is the hardest available right now. And this playthrough's goal is to do the entire thing without healing for another trophy, but also to do it in under 2 hours for another. And using the infinite rocket launcher makes this kind of a joke how easy it is. You can basically one-shot every single enemy except for the bosses, but even then the bosses die in only a few shots. It's just easy. And that's a trend in all these hard playthroughs of this game. It's essentially a breeze the entire time. The only somewhat challenging part is the final fight, because the final boss does get a quite considerable up in difficulty, and you'll see why on the Inferno playthrough. But I'm also not going to go through all of these on their own since I was speedrunning the shit out of them, and I finished my hardcore playthrough with 5 trophies popping at once, by the way. However, only one showed up like usual. Also, my final time was 1 hour and 17 minutes to finish that, so we were well below the 2 hours marker. I then did the same exact thing, just with the difficulty up to Nightmare this time, which was unlocked after beating it on hardcore. And that's why this requires at least 4 playthroughs, because you unlock a harder one each time you beat the previous hardest. But the Nightmare playthrough wasn't too much different, and it's almost near identical to hardcore, so here's that trophy once I won. And I finished that one with a time of 1 hour and 23 minutes, so we were slacking, yes, I know. But now it's time for the Inferno playthrough, the hardest in the game. And the only hard part about it is the final fight, like I have said. And that's because if you ever get hit by the guy's arm swinging down at you, you're basically dead. He does a lot of attacks in this difficulty, much faster attacks, and they hit much harder. Also, the break in between shooting his weak points and him getting back up is greatly reduced, making it very hard to get all the power slots pushed in with time to spare. But like everything with time and more tries, it gets easier, strategies subconsciously develop, and I did it right here after about 7 or 8 attempts, with that trophy popping taking me 1 hour and 11 minutes. Also popping the Inferno S rating trophy because of how fast I did it. I do still have one more trophy and playthrough left, sadly, and it's to beat the game without ever using the item box. Now that's not hard at all, but it is kind of fucking annoying, both because all of my OP stuff is in the item box, so I have to use base guns and items, but also because you can't ever get rid of items, and if you have too much on you, you can almost soft lock yourself out of a certain point of the game, so be careful with those key items and guns. However, it is done on assisted difficulty, so let's be real, this isn't hard. And here's that trophy once I finally did my final playthrough of the game, with the platinum trophy popping in succession. So that was the Resident Evil 3 platinum trophy experience. Overall, I really like the game. I'm very fond of horror games, especially getting the platinums on them because it makes it so much more fun to go after and do. Rating this one out of 10, I'll give it a solid 7. My only complaint is that the story is kind of short, but other than that, it's a very solid game. So yeah, that's all. Make sure to check out the second channel I've been streaming over there with the platinums, and I'll see you all soon with some more videos.